Please be aware that in this video, there will be spoilers about Ghost of Tsushima, The Last of Us, and Breaking Bad, the TV series. To many people, what I'm about to do is ridiculous, stupid, childish, and very unnecessary, especially that these games came out a while ago now. But I don't have anything to do right now, and to be honest, I don't think most of us do. This video isn't about how one of them is the superior game and how one buries the other overall. This video is about my playthroughs and how passing from one game to the other made me question myself. But before I talk about these games, you need to understand my mindset when it comes to these before they were released. The first time I played The Last of Us 1 was in March of 2020. Yes, March of this year, of the very release of this video and of the release of the sequel. So I don't have a long and enduring love for the first one because I played it on the PS Now cloud service this very year, and even though I learned to love these characters as the story unfolded, I didn't think the first one was an overall masterpiece. The story may have been, but the mechanics were dated and the overall technical aspect kind of disappointed me at first. But I love the characters, Joel, Ellie, Tess, Sam, and Henry amongst others. They really impacted my gameplay. And even though I started the game thinking Joel was yet another tough guy chiseled by life cliche, and I didn't like Ellie at first, I found her to be very annoying actually.
Let's keep going.
What did the Confederate soldiers use to eat off of? Civilware.
Uh-huh.
What did they use to drink with? Cups. Dixie cups.
And I thought at the beginning of the game that I would never buy how these two would develop a father-daughter relationship. I got attached to them and believed in their relationship by the end. I honestly realized I was playing an incredible experience only until the snow level, when the game cuts to Ellie hunting a deer, while we don't know if Joel is still alive or not, followed of course by the encounter of the cannibal group. That was an incredible experience. There was a sense of urgency and the stakes were so high during that part. I really got to worry for Ellie. And that deepened my connection to her in a very unexpected way. That, for me, was top-notch storytelling. This game really explored things and subjects I wasn't expecting to see.
It's me. Look. It's me.
He tried to...
Oh, baby girl. It's okay. It's okay.
Joel.
It's okay.
I loved the story of the first game, and I couldn't wait to see the same level of storytelling paired with a gameplay from 2020, especially from the people who made my favorite PS4 game until now, which is Uncharted 4. Until one day, I logged onto Twitter to discover that the entirety of the plot was leaked online, with key cutscenes revealed. I got spoiled about the death of Joel and the new protagonist, and many scenes put out of context made me believe that others could die, like Ellie and Dina. And that actually got me excited. Yes, unlike 99% of the people who read the leaks, I really became more excited by this game by reading the leaks. Why? Well, I like complex stories that are not predictable and where any character can die. And I feel like even though many people can agree that such stories are overall better, most people watch and comfort themselves with stories that just feel good and don't ask more from the entertainment industry.
What are you doing here?
Wait, so these are your bitches?
I beg your misogynistic pardon?
I was really excited for this game. Of course, I was afraid that the game would suck and that I would pay $60 for an experience I would come to hate when I finally got to play it, but that's the fear I have for every game that I buy. And when I finally finished the game, my opinion was that I kinda liked it. I got to say, my experience of The Last of Us 2 is very different from the first one. I love the technical aspect of the game. The gameplay, the graphics, the sound design, the animation, oh my god. All those details work marvelously to give us an incredible experience. But for me, the story has flaws, like, of course, every other game, of course, but one flaw that I wasn't expecting was the character writing. That's the main difference between The Last of Us 1 and The Last of Us 2. To me, the characters aren't as attaching and as interesting as in the first game. And when I say that, I'm not talking about all the characters, but I'll talk about it later. But I will say that in the first one, the characters we encountered were characters on their own journey, and they had their own objectives, opinions, and views on their own world that were already formed, and we would just happen to meet them. They furthered the plot, but always in a very natural and independent way, centered around one theme, which was love and forming new unexpected relationships. I also did not like the ending. I felt like it was a bit of a drag that had incredible, outstanding level designs, but I felt like it dragged a little bit too much with the theme of hatred. And that's where I stand with The Last of Us 2. This game disappointed me, and even though, yes, I liked it, I truly wanted to love it, and I didn't see the point of doing another playthrough. I honestly was expecting that the game I wanted to buy after The Last of Us 2, which was at the time Cyberpunk, would be the game that offered what I felt was missing from The Last of Us 2. But Sucker Punch was not having it. Ghost of Tsushima was a game I was barely interested in for years. The game looked good to me, but it looked like an average open world that was set in a period that, yes, interested me, but the marketing of the game never made me want to buy it. I only bought it on a whim because after The Last of Us 2, I wanted to play something different. And I got to say, after playing the two games, I can somewhat agree on the fact that The Last of Us is objectively, with air quotes, objectively, taking the technical aspects in consideration, the superior game. But I loved playing Ghost of Tsushima, and overall I much preferred it to The Last of Us 2. Ghost of Tsushima is the best example of a well-rounded game. It's not the most innovative game of this generation. The combat gameplay uses a very satisfying system in which you can alternate between 4 combat styles, but they still rely on the strong attacks to disarm and medium attacks we have seen in other games. But I loved it, and that was the thing that was crazy to me. I love innovative and ambitious stories, especially when it comes to video games and TV, because as much as I call myself a cinephile and a movie lover for knowing all the classics, I've spent more time in my life consuming these two mediums than cinema. Therefore, I know all too well all the tropes and tricks you commonly see in video games. I know them so well actually that it's really difficult for me to play some other video games because I can clearly see that the developers try to imitate and take from another successful trend or another franchise. It is also why I never jumped into the whole online multiplayer free-to-play craze games like Fortnite, Overwatch, and Apex Legends greatly profited of, because they are based on concepts that existed for a long time in video games and displayed in a way that makes it amazingly fun, of course, but repetitive. So imagine my surprise when at the end of my gameplay on Ghost of Tsushima, I asked myself, due to the climate of the release, which game I preferred, and how surprised I was by my own answer. On paper, The Last of Us 2 is everything that I want and desire from a video game, but it surprisingly, for me, suffered from comparison, whereas Ghost of Tsushima thrived on it. The Last of Us 2 is a sequel. That means that it has expectations of some sorts. I can't talk about what fans of the first one wanted, but I can tell you that something I was expecting and wanted from this game was a very well written character story, and no character in The Last of Us 2 is badly written. Well, maybe one or two, but that's debatable. But no one in the supporting cast was as interesting as Tess and Bill. They felt more like plot points sometimes than people, and I was very surprised by that, because I didn't like the gameplay in the first one and of the story so much. I expected to land around the same field opinion wise, but in this game I love the gameplay and I wasn't particularly impressed with the story. especially that in interviews Neil Druckmann talked about the overall theme for this game, which was hatred and its consequences, something that I thought was a good decision, but now having the full context of the game, I think was integrated in a manner that was too simplistic for my liking. I honestly doubted my enjoyment of video games as a medium. Question that wasn't only caused by the publishing of this game. I'll talk about this in another video, so maybe subscribe if you want to know why I won't buy a next-gen console. Anyway, and as I asked myself those questions, I started playing the critically acclaimed Ghost of Tsushima. That was not a sequel, was something completely new by a studio that never done this kind of game. And to be honest, I didn't like the first few hours of the game. For me, the setting was incredible, but it felt like a downgrade coming from a game where you could stab people in the face with a very realistic animation to a less realistic and more arcade game where you have an Arkham-inspired dodge and attack gameplay. And honestly, some of the characters that were in the main stories and in the secondary missions seemed so bland and cliche. I thought it would be another great but forgettable game, but something happened along the way. I got invested and my experience started to build up to something great, and by the time I finished this game, I wanted more, and I was so happy to have experienced this game. When that happened, I couldn't stop to feel shame for enjoying a fairly simplistic game over a game that tried to do so many interesting things. A game I wanted so bad, a game that had better graphics, better gameplay, and I think it was the egotistical, arrogant, and kinda elitist writer part of my brain that felt that shame. Because when I broke down the reason why I felt that way, I realized that the reason Ghost of Tsushima worked better for me is a lesson that I knew and that I keep forgetting no matter how much. Every time I start writing something, I try to remember. Ambition never pays for execution. Execution is the string that links everything when it comes to TV or film. It's essential because it makes or breaks a good story. Some movies I love have very simplistic scripts, but have flawless execution, and that shows. But whereas when it comes to TV and film, the term execution can be criticized due to it being a blurry concept, because execution resides in the storytelling or the script, as well as the direction or the way it was filmed. But in video games, this concept makes so much sense because between the story elements or cutscenes, you have to create levels and mechanics and make them execute properly in a way that makes sense. Playing Ghost of Tsushima, I felt like the execution of the cutscenes to the incredible stylized world to the gameplay built up to an incredible experience that felt natural and incredibly rewarding. Whereas in The Last of Us 2, some decisions that were supposed to be bold and very innovative felt flatter than expected. The best example of that is the decision to switch character mid-game. On paper, it is a brilliant idea. We are all the villains in someone else's story, after all. So seeing a perspective where Joel and Ellie aren't as squeaky clean is interesting, but I was disappointed by two things in that switch of characters. The first thing is the fact that it used the most shocking events from the first one as the backstory for some of the characters. And the reason why it disappointed me was that in the first one, it was established that Joel did some crazy disgusting things between the moment of the death of his daughter and his encounter with Ellie. So why not using that frame of time as an anchor for Abby's backstory? Why not make her older and be mad at Joel for killing her father back then? To me, it felt a little too on the nose that the guy we killed at the end of the first one is the reason why it all started. The second thing is the fact that I can't believe Neil Druckmann, who likes to play with expectations, didn't plan that people wouldn't want to play Abby after witnessing her brutally murder Joel. In order for me, a grown-ass man, to fully enjoy Abby and her story as it unfolded, I had to literally pause my game when I understood what Neil Druckmann was doing And I had to tell myself that she must have had good reasons to kill Joel, and she must not be a bad person. And that was the point of seeing the world through her eyes. And even after that, I still struggled with that, because every time I saw a new side of her that wasn't despicable, my subconscious kept screaming, see, they are making her more human because she killed a beloved character, but that doesn't mean she's bad. Look at her playing with the dog Ellie killed. She's not bad. That's what the writers want you to feel. And in the end, I did empathize with Abby, but I still wasn't on her side. Not nearly enough to attempt to kill and murder Ellie and Dina, and not nearly enough also to accept her killing Tommy and poor Jesse. And I think that is the point of this video. In one game, I found myself being little by little more immersed in the world, and in the other, I was fully in it from the get-go, but slowly grew disconnected to the story and the characters and the world. And it's a shame because I enjoyed The Last of Us 2. I'd give it a positive review if I had to, like maybe 6 or 7. I haven't thought about it, but I enjoy Ghost of Tsushima more, and considered how I want the content I enjoy to surprise me in an epic and thoughtful way. I can't believe that I didn't enjoy The Last of Us 2 more than Ghost of Tsushima. So that was it, guys. It was a very I know it's not the way it was a very difficult video to make because my microphone broke during the making of this video. It was supposed to be released earlier this year, but I had no money and I had to work for it. So thank you for listening. Please consider to subscribe, like, and leave a comment. That would be greatly appreciated. See you on Geek and Corner. Bye. My God.